Hello everyone, my name is Elijah David, minister of the 12th Hour Apostolic Sabbatarian Congregation, Mount Zion at the 12th Hour in Liberty Hill, Texas. Today is September 10, 2013, or it is Tishri 6, 2017. We'll start our first service today with a song entitled Under His Wings. Under His wings, I'm safely abiding. Though the night deepens and tempests are wild, still I can trust Him. I know He will keep me. He has redeemed me, and I am His child. Under His wings, under His wings, who from His love can sever? Under His wings, my soul shall abide, safely abide forever. Under His wings, what a refuge in sorrow. How the heart yearningly turns to His rest. Often when earth has no balm for my healing, there I find comfort and there I am blessed. Under His wing, under His wing, from His love can sever. Under His wing, my soul shall abide, safely abide forever. Under His wings, oh, what precious enjoyment. There will I hide till His trials are o'er. Sheltered, protected, no evil can harm me. Resting in Yahshua, I'm safe evermore. Under His wing, and under His wing, from His love can sever. Under His wing, my soul shall abide, safely abide forever. Hello everyone. Once again, this is Elijah David. We're going to continue right on into our services today. We're going to continue with a new series that we started before. We're on part 2 of Shepherd Rod Tract 1 by the B.T. Harloff. This is a revision from the original Shepherd Rod number 1 that he wrote in 1930. He wrote this revision in 1945. He condensed it down and brought out the main highlights that we need to go over today. And first we're going to defer to a prayer thought taken from Isaiah chapter 9. And once again, this is part 2. And we're on Isaiah chapter 9. We're going to start with verse 1. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first He lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun, and the land of the Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, and the Galilee of the nations. For the people that walked in the darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of the death, upon them hath the light shined. Thou hast multiplied the nation and not increased the joy. They joy before thee according unto the joy in the harvest. and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For thou hast broken the yoke of his burden. Okay, it says, for the staff of his shoulder, for the rod of his oppressor. Okay, now, and as in the day of the Midian, for every battle of the warrior is with the confused noise, and garments rolled in the blood. But this shall be with the burning and fuel of the fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty Yahweh, Everlasting Father, Prince of the Peace. Now I'm going to go back and put the prepositional phrases in there and see what it sounds like. His name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, of the Mighty Yahweh, the Father, of the Everlasting Father, the Father, as the Prince of the Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of the David. Okay. And upon his kingdom to order it and to establish it with a judgment and justice. Now Yahshua, right now, up to this point as we know, is in the heavenly sanctuary above, officiating as our high priest in the first apartment on a 365-day basis, but on the Day of the Atonement, one day of the year, he enters into the most holy place, closes the door of the outer court, and represents our sins of the year, the past year, before the Father, which sits above the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant in the most holy place. The curtain is pulled back, making one full room in the sanctuary. Only once a year does this happen. Yahshua becoming a high priest in the heavenly sanctuary doesn't have to worry about dying when he goes in before the Father, but about cleansing his own sins first. Number one, he never had sin to cleanse of his own, before or after he died, but he died for the sins of men. Now he has to represent the sins of men before the Father on the Day of Atonement to get them brought down. We've only got about 5 days till the Day of Atonement. And the Day of Atonement is called Judgment. Now, Yahshua no doubt is going to be performing a judgment act on the Day of Atonement with his Father in the heavenly sanctuary here in about 5 days. So he says, what's that for? It says to order it, let's read that again. Of the increase of his government, of the increase of Yahshua's government. When does his government increase? Now we're talking about this child that is born unto us here, the son that is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. Okay. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Elohim, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Now when is this government placed upon his shoulder? It's when he comes to sit upon the throne of David to rule and reign forever until he puts all enemies under his footstool. Now, what does that tell us? Well, what we need to do is we need to read Luke 1:32 again, and let's learn something here. Once again, when the increase of his government begins. Because he hasn't until we have a prophetic date showing when he comes and sit upon the throne of David, then we don't know when his government increases. He just says that the government will be upon his shoulder. What government? The government of heaven and of earth. Okay, that belongs to the throne of David to govern. here in these last days. Now in Luke 1:31, and behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb, and bring forth a child, and shalt call his name Yahshua. For he shall be great, and he shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the Yahweh Elohim shall give unto him the throne of his earthly father David. And he shall reign over the house of the Jacob, which is the 12 tribes of Israel, 144,000. So when he's first seen coming to this earth, he's seen in Revelation 14:1 standing on the Mount Zion with the 144,000 here on this earth. Okay. That's when he's going to take it and reign over the house of Jacob forever. And the 144,000 is going to be his governing body and upon the throne of David, in the everlasting kingdom of the David, which is the everlasting kingdom of the heaven, sit up here on earth. And that's when the increase of his government begins. That's when he comes and takes his place upon the throne of David here on earth. Okay. Meanwhile, he's still functioning as a high priest in the heavens. But as soon as he lays off his priestly attire in the heavens, and whenever the judgment is finished for that segment of the judgment that he's performing right now, and that is for the bringing forth the 144,000. And as soon as he gets that finished, then he'll bring them forth after that, and they no doubt will appear on the day of Pentecost. Okay? The antitypical Pentecost, that is. That comes 50 days after the Passover week of unleavened bread is finished. After the wave sheaf offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. 49 days. And on the 50th day is the Pentecost. We're looking for the antitypical Pentecost with the outpouring of the Spirit now in power. Okay. We had the outpouring of the Spirit and power in the type with the disciples. 50 days after Yahshua was crucified. And Yahshua had ascended back to heaven 10 days before the Pentecost, and then the Father exonerated him, crowned him King of Kings, had him sit upon the throne of David in heaven, exonerated him as a king now that has inherited this earth and all of those that will be redeemed by his blood. Okay. So now he's coming back to take, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever. And this throne that he's going to come back and sit upon is the one that he was coronated on in heaven when he went back to heaven. And now he's going to bring that throne back to earth. And that's the throne of David. And as soon as he brings back to David, then he's going to call all the redeemed, starting with 144,000, to come and sit with him in his throne, even as he overcame and sit down with his Father in his throne. And that's in Revelation chapter 3, verse about 21, 22, and 23. Okay. So now it says right here that in Luke 1, 30, 31, and 32 through 33, that whenever he comes back, he's already sitting upon the throne of David, because he comes in his throne. Ezekiel has a prophecy on that in Ezekiel 1, especially Ezekiel 1. And, we need to get familiar with these prophecies and know how to tie them in and coordinate them together with parables and so forth. They all go together. Parables are a sermonette of the truth, of the story that you're about to try to, or you are going to tell. Now in Ezekiel 1:26, and it says, and above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, and the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man upon it. Now Ezekiel saw this throne coming to earth in the earlier part of this chapter. He saw it coming to earth, and as he got closer, he was able to identify a man sitting upon it. And he says it's like the Son of Man. In another place, he said he appeared as a Son of Man. And then Matthew bears this out in Matthew 25, 31, 32. He says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all his holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. What throne? It's the throne of his glory is the throne of David. That's the throne of his glory. And 144,000 sits with him on the throne of his glory, which is the throne of David here on this earth, as is read to you in Luke 1:32 and 33. And so the plot just thickens and thickens and thickens, but it gets clearer and clearer. So what we need to understand, folks, is that we are very approaching a very important time. Within 5 days, this could be the year. Because it says in Matthew 24, it says the Son of Man appears in an hour that you think not. He's already done this one time, 10 years ago. I mean, actually, now it's going to be 11 years ago. He appeared at Carmel, Texas. Invisible, but he appeared. He made his presence known. Okay? Now, I guess that's really enough said on the prayer thought to get us going. Let's go now to our main reading, Shepherd Rod, Tract 1 by the B.T. Harlop. We're on page 11. And we're going to start with the very first paragraph of page 11. Since as we have previously seen, from the spirit of prophecy, the sealing and the slaughter take place in the Seventh-day Adventist congregation during, not before, but during the closing work for her. For they could not antedate the present time, and the prophecy itself shows that the sealing must begin at a time when her spiritual life is at its lowest ebb. And no doubt, 2002 Carmel, Texas, the third feeding pasture for the Adventist Church, the only live feeding pasture that was going for them, with the angel of the seventh candlestick, Brother Stephen Johnson, at the helm, representing the voice piece for the Adventist Church, the whole Adventist world, including the Davidians. And it says, when she is polluted with the sin and the exceeding great iniquity, Ezekiel 9:9, or it is her defiled condition that causes a holy people to do in her midst the work of the marking, sealing of the saints, and of the doing away with the sinners from among them. Now, the parable of Matthew 13 says those sinners are classified as tares among the wheat. So apparently then the saints are identified by that symbol of the grain wheat. Meaning, and wheat also represents the doctrine of righteousness by the faith in the blood of the Yahshua, as well as the grain of mustard seed in in Matthew 13:31. And as well as that little stone in Daniel 2, that's hewn out of that great mountain without hand, and strikes the image on the feet, and grows into a mountain. That's the one that is using that grain of doctrine of the wheat, the mustard seed, and that's antithetical David, representing the little stone, the infant kingdom. The mustard seed represents the infant kingdom, the little stone represents the infant kingdom in its beginning. But it's in its beginning with a spirit-filled, sin-free prophet and his followers. They're all sin-free. Once they are given this commission and empowered by the power of Pentecost, then they are indeed set free to be his battle axe and weapons of war. And with them, he's going to thresh the nations. You'll find that in Jeremiah 51:19 and other places. How does she start to reach this condition? For the servant of Yahweh sadly answers, for For the Yahshua has not closed heaven unto us. I'm talking about the Son now, since he come down here. And Yahweh his Father certainly hasn't closed heaven unto us. But our own course of the continual backsliding. And this is Ellen G. White talking to the Advent host. Has separated us from the Yahweh Elohim. For the pride, covetous, and love of the world have lived in the heart without the fear of the banishment or condemnation. Grievous and presumptuous sins have dwelt among us, and yet the general opinion is that the church is flourishing and that peace and spiritual prosperity are in all her borders. Now, for the congregation of the Seventh-day Adventists has turned back from the following Yahshua, her leader. What causes the Adventist congregation to turn back? Apparently, they have selected a new leader. Okay. So it says, for the congregation of the Israel has turned back, and she has chosen a new leader. So it says right here, for the congregation has turned back from the following of her leader, Yahshua, and she has chosen a new leader, and that new leader, no doubt, is Satan. There's only two choices, choice between Yahshua and Satan. And she wrote this in 1888 about, or even before. She said, and is steadily retreating toward the Egypt. Yet few are alarmed or astonished at their want of the spiritual power. They don't even crave to have any spiritual power at all. Doubt and even disbelief of the testimony of the spirit of the prophecy of the Yahshua, Revelation 19:10. I put that in as an addition to Spirit of the Yahweh, is leavening our congregations of the Seventh-day Adventists everywhere. Testimonies, Volume 5, page 217. For we have wandered away from the old landmarks, let us return. If the Yahweh be the true Elohim, then serve him. If Baal, Satan, Lucifer, the god of this world, serve him. Which side will you be on? Testimony, Volume 5, page 137. Now notice how I upgraded these statements with adding a few more words that will better explain the real issues here. As the Yahshua views the state of his professed followers today, he sees of the base ingratitude, a hollow formalism, hypocritical insincerity, pharisaical pride, and apostasy. Testimony, Volume 5, page 72. Who can truthfully say now, this is Ellen G. White still continuing to talk, that our gold is tried in the fire, that our garments are unspotted by the world? For I saw our instructor pointing unto the garments of the so-called righteousness, stripping them off, for he laid bare the defilement beneath. Then he said unto me, can you not see how they have pretentiously covered up their defilement and rottenness of the character? How has the faithful city become unhardened? For my Father's house is made a house of the merchandise, a place whence the divine presence and glory have departed. Well, whereas when the Father comes to the sanctuary here on earth to help his Son perform judgment on Day of Atonement, who does he come to see? He comes to see those that are keeping his commandments, not those that are serving Baal now, that have apostatized. That's the reason why his presence and glory has departed from the Adventist Church and from the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist, and from the branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventist in Tract, Texas. It departed from there in 2003. Yahweh gave Rose Johnson a whole year to reassess his position and what he had done the past 32 years. He gave him the 33rd year of his ruling over the house of David, tribe of Judah, the lawgiver, as the antitypical Esau, to see if he couldn't see by the weight of the evidence as it unfolded throughout the 32 years of his life while he was in control of the kingdom. And he had Elijah David there all the way with him to counterbalance his judgments that he would make and his assessments that he would make upon the Adventist church all through those years. And I was there to counterbalance all that, and if he made a wrong assessment, I was there to show him how to reassess his position and the right choice to make. But he never saw that. He never realized that. He ended up, after 32 years of us being together, calling me an enemy, a devil's imp. Well, because he resisted everything all through those years that I had counseled him with. And naturally, why shouldn't he call me a devil's imp? Okay. So now it says, for the time has come for the earnest, let's continue with Ellen G. White, and powerful efforts to rid the congregation of the spiritual Israel of today, which Ellen G. White identified and told them that they were the Adventist church of the spiritual Israel today. And she also told them in the great controversy at the very beginning, before they went in and deleted a lot of her her key quotes, she said the Adventist is the holy city, represents the holy city here on earth. But only 144,000, the last segment of the Adventist church, that represents the harvest of the Adventist church. They are the ones that are described, made of the holy city, because they're the holy pillars that were built up as lively pillars in the temple of the Yahweh. Now Peter described that. You as lively stones are built up as spiritual pillars of the temple. Okay. So it says, thus with the humiliating certainty we are made to see and to acknowledge that the condition of the Adventist congregation is deplorable in the sight of the Yahweh Elohim. Testimony, Volume 3, page 253. And it is a mournfully admitted fact among all the informed and honest throughout the denomination of the Seventh-day Adventists, and now the Davidian Seventh-day Adventists, and now the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists, which time has passed. Their feeding pastures have dried up. They've been closed out. Okay. And so now we are in the feeding pasture of Mount Zion at the 12th hour. And joining the flock of the David. Now we're feeding in new feeding pastures every day. You know how the flock of sheep has to do. They have to continue to move on over to the next feeding part. Okay. So it says right here, for the spiritual death laments the voice of the inspiration has come upon the people that should be with the manifesting of the life and zeal and purity and consecration by the most earnest devotion unto the cause of the truth. And what is it? Psalm 119, 142 say the truth is? Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. For the facts concerning the real condition of the professed people of Elohim speak more loudly than their profession, and make it evident that some power has cut the cable that has anchored them unto the eternal rock, and they are drifting away unto the sea without a chart or a compass. And that's written in Christ Our Righteousness, page 36, 1941 edition. Okay, that's another printed a revision by the General Conference, because Ellen G. White died in 1915. She wrote this at the time that they were apostatizing around 1888. For the men and women are in the last hours of the probation, and yet are careless and stupid, and ministers have no power to arouse them, for they are asleep. themselves. Okay. What did it say in Matthew 13? He said, while men slept, the enemy came and sowed the tares among the wheat and went his way. Okay, who does Ellen G. White say are sleeping? These wise men that has taken the helm of the grand old ship, the helm of the wheel of the grand old ship Zion, Seventh-day Adventists, and that's the General Conference president and his officers on it. That were formed in 1863. They finally have completely usurped Ellen G. White's power and authority, and they have now taken the reins as a lead team of those grizzled horses that is hooked onto the bay horses, that is hooked onto the fourth chariot there in Zechariah 6. That fourth chariot represents the Laodicean congregation of the Seventh-day Adventists. And those General Conference leader represents those grizzled horses. Okay. Indeed, the conviction is with the gaining ground in the world that Seventh-day Adventists are giving the trumpet an uncertain sound, that they are following in the path of the worldlings. Testimonies mentions page 86. Now, for all these and for other reasons, some of which we know not, a pure and holy Yahweh Elohim, this is a pure and holy Yahshua, the Son, is waiting his sword in heaven to cut down those who do not sigh and cry for all the abominations that are done in the house of Israel, the city. And that's the Adventist church. Oh, that every lukewarm professor could realize, and that's in Ezekiel 9, as we all know by now. Oh, that every lukewarm professor could realize the clean work that the Elohim is about to make among his professed people. Testimony Volume 1, page 190. Well, at this point with the care, those who receive the pure mark of the truth wrought in them by the power of the Yahweh Spirit, represented by a mark by the man in the linen, or those that sigh and they cry for all the abominations that be done in the congregation. Testimony Volume 3, page 367. For the seal of the Yahweh Elohim will be placed upon the foreheads of those who sigh and cry for the abominations done in the land. Testimony Volume 5, page 312. Had anybody ever wondered about what label was on that seal that Yahweh placed in their head, upon their head? Had anybody ever wondered about it? Well, let's go look at Revelation 3 for a moment. And let's read about a seal that has three parts to it. And this is the seal of Yahweh, not only his name Abba, Father, that is written in the Sabbath, but how about you have to have that sign on you. Your destination is New Jerusalem. How about that one? Now in Revelation 3:12 it says, him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my Elohim, and he shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my Elohim and the name of the city of my Elohim, which is with the name of New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of the heaven from my Elohim, and I will write upon him my new name. Now, when he comes down out of heaven with that holy city, he said, then he's going to write upon those overcomers his new name. They get the first seal in heaven, Abba, Sabbath. Shows that they're true Sabbath keepers of all the holy days mentioned there in Leviticus 23. And all those holy days mentioned in Leviticus 23, Yahshua is the author of. And he's a co-creator of all creation. Okay. So now, what are those three seals? First, he's going to, the overcomer, he will, I'll make a pillar in the temple. These lively stones that Peter's talking about, that are built up unto a holy temple of my Elohim. And he shall go no more out. He's not going to go no more out once he's sequestered and secured inside this temple here on this earth, and that's in the throne of David when Yahshua comes down to reign and to put all enemies on his footstool. He's going to take all the saints with him and bring them into the everlasting kingdom, which is the everlasting kingdom of David, sitting upon the David's throne. And I'll write upon him my new name after this is all set up here on earth. And after the holy city comes down, from the heaven. Here in this 12th parabolic hour, as we're looking at right here now. Right here. And we're in this 12th parabolic hour. All this is going to take place right here in this last daylight hour of the 12 hours of the day. When these two hands get together on that number 1, sundown. End of the 12 hours allotted for the man, parabolical hours allotted for the man's probation. Okay. So now, we'll go back to our reading, and shall be read by tract number 1. We're going to pick up where we left off. Necessarily, while the investigative judgment is going forward in the heaven, while the saints of the penitent believers are being removed from the sanctuary, there is to be a special work of purification of the putting away of the sin from among the Elohim's people on the earth. Great controversy of 425. A special work, folks. A special work is to be done. When is that done? It is done during the time, well actually it's done when the sanctuary is restored and put up. That's when it starts. This was a commission with Brother Johnson to start this in 1970 when he was given the inspiration to raise up the tabernacle of David that had fallen down after many centuries, and to restore the sanctuary back to its rightful order and put all the feast days in operation with the 7-day Sabbath as the first one. Now notice that the 7-day Sabbath is the first one restored when the sanctuary is set up. And the sanctuary. That's the first one mentioned there in the beginning of creation. And it's mentioned on the 7th day of creation. All the other holy days were added because of transgression. In other words, all the other holy days had already been there, but the law that was added because of transgression was the ceremonial law of the animals that they had to perform on those holy days. And those additional holy days are Yahshua's holy days, that he's the author of. It says so in John 15:10. Yahshua says directly to his disciples, if you keep my commandments, or to all the people standing around him, if you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I've kept my Father's commandments, the 10, and abide in his love. But Yahshua keep the Father's 10 commandments, because he didn't have to have blood to purify his sin, because he never sinned. So he could very easily keep Yahweh's commandments, his Father, the 10, without sinning against him. But we can't. We have to have the aid of Yahshua's additional commandments that's added because of transgression. That's Galatians 3:19. It says, wherefore then serveth the law? The law was added because of transgression. What law? The law of the ceremonial sacrifice and the ordinance and that takes place on those daily festivals in the sanctuary. That was what was added because of transgression. The feast days had always been there from the time in heaven. All those holy days of the Passover and the Pentecost and the Atonement was all set up in heaven. When the heavenly sanctuary was first set up in the beginning, in heaven. They were set up because angels had sinned, and they were offered the sanctuary service to cleanse their sins first. Okay. So now, it says, necessary for the investigative judgment. Now, notice the investigative judgment is the first phase of the 3 steps of the judgment, where you have the judicial judgment second, and then you have the executive judgment third. Okay? Judicial judgment takes place on the Day of Atonement. Investigative judgment takes place between Passover and the Atonement. Okay? And then the executive judgment takes place after the Atonement. There's the 3 phases of the Atonement. Okay? Now that this special work is on, there is a doubt no longer. Okay? I'll rearrange those words a little bit. It says now that this special work is on, there is without any doubt that we are no longer, that we are now approaching unto the days of the purification of the Seventh-day Adventist congregation, and are hastening on apace with this. For the Elohim actually will have a people along with his son, and pure and true. He will have a people pure and true, and that starts with the house of David, the wave sheaf offering to bring forth 144,000. The house of David was set up in 2002 to come protection as a successor to the house of antipode Esau, Brother Stubby Johnson, that reigned for 33 years, from 1970 to 2003. Okay. And it says, Elohim will have a people pure and true, and the mighty shifting soon to take place, we shall be better able to measure the strength of the true Israel. Notice Israel only belongs, that name only can apply and be given unto a people that has overcome and without sin, like Jacob did. His name was changed from Jacob to Israel when he wrestled with the angel all night and got the victory, and got his sins are completely all forgiven and blotted out. And when was he wrestling with the angel all night? It was on the Day of Atonement. Otherwise, the angel could not have blotted out his lifelong of sins that he had committed, and you know how long, I mean, that he had against his record, and that was the sins from the time that he stole Esau's birthright until 20 years later, that he's returning back to his father's house, having been forced out of his father's house and out of his country and out of the land of Canaan to go into Mesopotamia to spend 20 years toiling with his uncle Laban and accumulating 4 wives there and 12 sons, and then Yahweh visited him and told him it's time to return back to the land of your father, to your home of your father Isaac, and the land of Canaan. Okay. And another memorable vision of the same crucial work, Sister White, saw angels hurrying to and fro in the heaven, descending unto the earth, and again ascending into the heaven, preparing for the fulfillment of some important event. Now, what else could this event be but the coronation of the Yahshua with his 144,000 governing body of his kingdom that is set up here on this earth, here in the 12th parabolic hour, just right in front of us. And I saw another mighty angel, she continues, Ellen G. White continues, with the commission for the descending onto the earth. Now notice the 3 angels never did touch the earth. But now this mighty angel comes down and stands on the earth to unite his voice with the 3rd angel. Okay. Actually, Ellen G. White calls this the 5th angel of Revelation 18, the one that is called to join the 3rd angel to light the whole earth with his power, and to give power to the 3rd angel and repeat the message of the 3rd angel. What was the 3rd angel's message to begin with? It was, don't go back and take the mark of the beast. Well, that message was first announced in 1844, telling the little remnant band, now don't you go back and fall back into Babylon, to where those 50,000 followers of William Miller did. Don't you go back now and fall, okay, into Babylon and take the mark of the beast. So that mark of the beast was set up in 1844 with the little Advent band. Now she's repeating this, or now the message is repeating this now with the 5th angel, telling the people, or the 3rd angel is being repeated with the power of the 5th angel in the 12th parabolic hour. Don't go back now and take the mark of the beast. You've come forward now. You've made it out of the 11th parabolic hour, your last step in the sinful world. Okay. You made it out of the last step, which is Gilead Center Convocation from 1970-2003, to make up the nucleus and remnant, and the wave sheaf offering for the house of David to start this here 12th parabolic hour. But he said, now don't go back now. Don't fall back into that, or you'll take the mark of the beast for sure. Because those that didn't pass into the 12th parabolic hour out of here took the mark of the beast. Already got it. Okay. And it says, then I saw another mighty angel. She continues commissioned to send unto the earth for the unite of his voice with the third angel, that's the fifth angel, and give power and force unto his message. Elohim's power and glory were imparted unto the angel, and as he descended, the earth was lightened with his glory. Now, it says, for this message seemed to be an addition unto the third message, for Ellen G. White. And she wrote that in the word little flock. Okay. And only those who answers the Spirit of the truth, okay. So, only those answering unto the Spirit of the truth, who have withstood the temptation and the strength of the Mighty One, will be permitted for the action and part in the proclaiming of that message. For the third angel's message, and then that is the third angel's message, that is had joined the fifth angel. And no doubt then that would be the 144,000, those that escaped the first judgment. They go to Isaiah 66 to get that, about those people that escaped. And then they take their message to their brethren, the Gentiles, to the isles and nations of the world. When it shall have swelled into a loud cry, Review and Herald, November 19, 1908. For the great issue so near at the hand will weed out those whom Elohim has not appointed, and he will have a pure, true, sanctified ministry prepared for the latter rain. Okay, now she wrote that in B 55, 1886. Why are the sinners taken from among the righteous before the earth is lightened with the glory of the angel? Well, the question should be asked more pertinently. Why are the sinners taken of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the spiritual Israel, the one in her defiled state? Why are the sinners taken away from among the righteous before the earth is lightened? Well, that's just separating the wheat from the tares. The tares in the Adventist Church from the 144,000. You have to do that to bring forth a pure and undefiled people, and then the angel comes down and fills and that with power and glory. That would be on the day of Pentecost. That's when the power falls of the Holy Spirit. Because one sinner may diffuse darkness that will exclude the light and Elohim from the entire congregation. Testimonies, volume 3, page 265. For the clear sequence of the facts here brought to view conclusively points out that we are now in the closing work for the Seventh-day Adventists. Now I'll upgrade this, and the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist Shepherd's Rod, and the Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventist, the Isaac Branch people of the Gilead Center, Kermit, Texas, with the Burles Johnson, now deceased, 2012, he passed away. Of the 144,000, that's the sealing, marking, sifting, shaking, special work, important event, closing work, and purification, all result alike in the destruction of the unsealed and in the purification of the sealed. Yes, this is a preparation for the time of the trouble, the large cry, the closing work for the world. Obviously then, the closing message for the world is proclaimed by the faithful only. And the Elohim's people during the plagues are apart by themselves with no unfaithful among them. So the subject of the 144,000 with its interrelated subjects coming into the clear, harmonious focus shows that the 11th hour call for the laborers, which comes at the end of the 11th hour, but the beginning of that call came at the end of the 10th hour in 1970. For I was called to work at the beginning of the 11th parabolic hour with the Burles W. Johnson in the Kermit, Texas. And we might just even zoom that in a little bit here and let you get a bit closer view on what we're talking about here. If we can, get that in there. So now it says that, but the 11th hour call, as far as that's concerned, the call to work into the next parabolic hour then would have to take place right here at the end of the 11th parabolic hour, because this is called that fifth group of laborers mentioned there in Matthew 20 verse 6. The last group that is called working in the vineyard, and they're called at the end of the 11th parabolic hour, which ended in 2002 at Carmel, Texas. And that new group is the house of David, with typically Elijah David as the head of it. So now let's read that again from Big Jihad. It says, and now, let's see, it says, so the subject of 144,000 with its interrelated subjects coming into the clear, harmonious focus, shows that of the 11th hour call for the laborers, the last one, Matthew 20 verse 6, and the Yahshua's vineyard is now in the progress. And that now is the time to strive with all the power Elohim has given us to be among the 144,000 Review and Herald, March the 9th, 1905. Now, Vicki Holiff has given this address in 1945, and he's in the midst of the 10th parabolic hour. Now, he's saying this 11th hour call laborers are coming on to get ready to take their place in the vineyard. Vicki Holiff thought he was this 11th hour group that was already working in the vineyard. He thought he was in the 11th parabolic hour. But he wasn't. But he was making the prophecy to start with Brothers Johnson in 1970 to begin the 11th parabolic hour. And then when the 11th parabolic hour is over, then there is a call at the end of the 11th parabolic hour, not at the beginning. I was called secretly and silently at the end of the 10th hour to work with Brothers Johnson in the 11th parabolic hour. As Brothers Johnson was called silently and secretly to head up the 11th hour, because he didn't even know it was 11th parabolic hour. Because V.T. Holliff always said the 11th parabolic hour sounded in 1930. And so V.T. Holliff and Brothers Johnson didn't have no way of knowing, except that he was to continue on the 11th hour work, and so he named his church 11th hour Adventist Remnant Church, showing where the shepherd rod had advanced out of the daughter of Mama, the daughter of Mama, the Adventist Church, and now we are progressed to with a new name. He called it a new name, 11th hour Adventist Remnant Church. Okay. So now it says, and now this identification of the 144,000 has caused the identity of the great multitude, okay, Revelation 7:9, to become almost as mooted as a question as it was with the Advents about the 144,000. So the responsibility assumed in this series for the identifying of the former, the first fruits, imposes a commensurate responsibility for the identifying of the latter, the second fruits, the great multitude. After this I beheld in low air great multitude which no man can number, of all the nations and kindreds and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with the white robes and palms in their hands. Revelation 7:9. Leading up unto the identification of this great multitude, inspiration has given several clues, one of which is a classification of the redeemed of all ages, from the martyrdom of Abel to the close of the probation. Group number one. Nearest the throne are those who were once zealous in the cause of Satan, but who, plucked as brands from the burning, have followed their Savior with the deep, intense devotion. Number two group is next are those who perfected Christian characters in the midst of the falsehood and infidelity, those who honored the law of Elohim when the Christian world declared it void. Well, that's what happened at Carmel. The angel of the seventh candlestick declared Yahweh's law null and void when he said he was rescinding the daily a second time in 32 years, and that next keep will get in the land when it's more convenient. So he, in essence, he trampled the whole sanctuary system underfoot and declared Yahweh's law null and void while we're still in the wilderness of the people here in the 11th parabolic hour. That's what happened. Okay. Okay, number 3 group, it says, and the millions of all ages who were martyred for their faith. And the number 4th group, and beyond, is the great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with the white robes and palms in their hands. Okay, now, he said we have a couple moments left for this study. We're going to bring this to a close pretty quickly with a song. Here a momentous question presses for the answer. Since we are plainly shown that the great multitude, group 4, are a company separate from the plucked brands, group 1, from the overcomers of the falsehood and infidelity, group 2, and from the martyrs of all time, group 3, how can the great multitude possibly be composed of the saints of all ages, of all the redeemed? Very obviously they cannot. Consequently, if they are not the group 1, 2, or 3, then who can they be but the living saints? And since they are not the 144,000, the first fruits of the living, they must then be the second fruits. Indeed, there must be second fruits, for the term first fruits calls for the second fruits just as much as the term first resurrection, Revelation 20 verse 6, calls for the second resurrection, and as much as the term second death, Revelation 20 verse 14, calls for a first death. Okay. So nevertheless, still another baffling question requires an answer. If the Yahshua's query, when the Son of the Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth, Luke 18:8. Also, his statement, fear not, little flock, Luke 12:32, mean that few are to be saved and found living when he comes for his own, then how can there be an innumerable multitude? Though at the first glance the question propounds a paradox, it is quickly resolved, and the idea that only a few living saints are to meet him in the air is effectively dissipated when account is taken of the facts that the harvest truly is plenteous, Matthew 9:37, that it is the end of the world, Matthew 13:39, and that the very term harvest itself denotes a larger gathering than at any previous session. Furthermore, the query, shall he find faith on the earth, is not the questioning of the number of the saints at this particular time, but rather faith itself regardless of the number. And if at his appearing in the clouds to take home the faithful, he finds no faith in the earth, then what about his waiting church when it is to be without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, be it small or great? This brings a close. Let's take this out. Okay, when the road is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the trumpet of the Yahshua shall sound, then time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair. When the saved of earth shall gather over on the other shore, and the road is called yonder, I'll be there. When the road is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. On that bright and cloudless morning, when the dead in Yahshua shall rise, and the glory of his resurrection share, when his chosen ones shall gather to their homes beyond the sky, and the road is called yonder, I'll be there. When the road is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. Let us labor for the Master from the dawn till setting sun. Let us talk of all his wondrous love and care. And when all of life is over and our work on earth is done, and the road is called up yonder, I'll be there. yonder. When the road is cold up yonder, I'll